Today I'm going to show you how to attach the Venus Optics Laowa 10mm f2.8 0D full frame lens in an Ikelite housing for Sony cameras, either 200 DLM-A or 200 DLM-E. It's going to be the same attachment, and let's see how to do that. So first, I'm going to remove the lens cap of my lens. And you can see that there's some bright white lettering around that with some kind of record groove rings. And to avoid reflections of that into a dome port when I shoot this underwater, I'm going to add a simple anti-reflection ring that's going to cut down on reflections, and it's not going to affect anything else about the lens, whether you're shooting on the surface or underwater. So it's great to have that stuck on there and just leave it on there. So when I peel it off the backing, I find it's easiest just to align kind of the center point of that with the outer edge of the lens front inside of the filter ring. And I'll just put that on there and push it down with my thumb or finger. And that's ready to go. Now that I have that anti-reflection ring attached, I need to do one more thing, and that is remove this lens hood from the front of the lens. It is a removable feature, and I'm just going to rotate that counterclockwise and take it off and put it with my other photo gear. That lens hood will prevent this lens from fitting through the extension that we need to use on the dome port. So you do need to have that removed before you try to put it in this housing. So let's turn our attention to the dome port and the extension. I'm going to flip my dome port over and notice that both the extension and the dome port have 3 thumb screws in them. On the dome port, I'll go ahead and loosen these thumb screws so that none of the threads are protruding into the inner diameter of the dome port. And that's important so that it doesn't catch the O-ring as this gets assembled. I'm going to lubricate the O-ring on the extension. So I just put a very small amount of lubricant on my fingers, and I'm going to put the remainder of it on the inside sealing surface of that dome port. And it's really important that I'm only using Ikelite brand lubricant, because that's the only lubricant that we've tested to ensure that there's no chemical incompatibilities with either these O-rings or these materials. So then I'm going to align the thumb screws on the extension with the thumb screws on the dome port. I'm going to do that, push them together, and then just finger tighten the thumb screws. You don't want to use a tool. You don't want to over tighten them. I'm just tightening them till they stop. These do not create the seal, and in fact, if they're too tight, they could negatively affect the seal. So only tighten them until they stop. Don't even really snug them up. Now I can set that aside and turn my attention to the housing. So I've got my camera body already installed in this housing. What I'm going to do is now go ahead and put a little bit of lubricant on the O-ring that's on the port base on the DLM housing, just like I did with that extension before. And then I'll put the remainder of that lubricant on the inside of the extension where the O-ring seals. I also want to go ahead and loosen the thumb screws on my extension so that they don't protrude into the inside. Now, when my hands are clean, I want to take the body cap off the camera body and set it aside. Now I go back to my lens. My lens has a cap on the back of it. It also has a red dot on the back that indicates an alignment with the white dot on the camera body. And I just click that in with the bayonet fit. Now I'll take my dome port, and my dome port has some large projections and some small projections, and I want these large ones to be on the top and bottom of my image. If I was to put them on like this with them on the sides, then I might get vignetting they might actually show up in my picture. You want to always put them on the top and the bottom. So I'm going to line that up and push it down until it hits and it's flush. And then I'm just going to use my fingers to tighten up those thumb screws. Again, not too tight, just until they stop, and just with my fingers. And that's all put together. Now what I'm going to do is, I have a vacuum valve, which is optional, installed in this housing. I'm going to use a vacuum pump to check for leaks prior to entering the water, and I'm ready to shoot with the Laowa 10mm lens. If you're shooting this lens, let us know what you're capturing underwater. Comment below or share to us via Ikelite at ikelite.com. See you soon.